In this video, we'll take some time to review the concepts for the midterm in BST 601. You may take a look at all 40 module objectives that we've covered up to this point and be overwhelmed. Don't be. Each of those objectives has built upon prior objectives. So by the time you get to running an analysis, when you've assessed the data, determined what the appropriate summary statistics are, created a table or a figure to demonstrate that, then run the analysis in JMP, made a conclusion, and then written a summary about your conclusion, you've addressed nearly all of the module objectives already. But please make sure to go through them so that you understand the vocabulary words that are associated with each of the techniques you've learned, when the variable types are appropriate, and so on. To start this review, we'll consider an abstract from a study on soda intake. The research is titled, "Regular Soda Intake, Independent of Weight Status, is Associated with Asthma Among U.S. High School Students." The abstract reads, "Limited research shows an inconclusive association between soda intake and asthma, potentially attributable to certain preservatives in soda. This cross-sectional study examined the association between regular or non-diet soda intake and current asthma among a nationally representative sample of high school students. Analysis was based on the 2009 National Youth Risk Behavior Survey and included 15,960 students, grades 9 through 12, with data for both regular soda intake and current asthma status." Given this abstract, can you answer the following questions? What is the predictor variable? What is the outcome of interest? Who is in the population of inference for this study? What is one research question that could be addressed in this study? And state one hypothesis that is tested in this study. Stop the video now and determine if you can answer these questions based upon this abstract. This table, also called Table 1, which is a summary of the sample that we have from our population under all respondents. In addition, it summarizes them by current asthma status, no or yes, and there are actually some results included in this table. You can see the characteristics or variables of interest for describing your sample are in the left column, with asthma status in its own separate column. All of the variables in this table are described in one manner. You can see they're all reported similarly. Based upon this table, can you answer the following questions? What variable type is regular soda intake, or age, or sex, or weight status? Which variables can be considered predictors but not outcomes? Is the variable age mutually exclusive and exhaustive as described in the table? For which of these variables could you calculate cumulative percentages? What type of graph would be more appropriate for weight status variable? Can you interpret the age variable using the interpretation guidelines provided in module notes? What measure of central tendency is appropriate for regular soda intake? And what measures of dispersion are appropriate for regular soda intake? Given this table that shows the actual ages that are reported, remember Table 1 reported them by group. If you have the age, say age 11 and 35 respondents were aged 11, and 519 were age 12, 743 were age 13, so forth and so on, you can see the 4,734 respondent ages here. You can also see the percent that falls within each age and the cumulative percent across all ages. Stop the video and see if you can answer these questions. Would you report mean and standard deviation for the age distribution or the 5-number summary? Why? What measures of dispersion or spread would be appropriate for this variable type? What measures of central tendency would be appropriate for this variable type? And can you create the recode diagram that would take this data and make it the same as reported in the prior Table 1? Given a sample here of responses by gender, or the number of sodas by gender, what is the range for each distribution? What would be the IQR for each distribution? What would be the appropriate measure of central tendency for each distribution? Calculate and interpret each of the above. For which distribution, males or females, should you beware of the mean, and why? And are there any outliers in either distribution? For a different type of data, we have a sample of data collected from a random sample of older adults living here in Jefferson County. We collected a range of variables to explore experiences with aging, and we need to write a brief report for a community organization. Given this code book for the elderly data set with an N of 99, what is the variable type for each variable in this code book? Select appropriate variables for use with the following statistical techniques. Carefully consider the variable types as you've outlined them above. Which variables could you run a t-test on? Which variables could you run an ANOVA on? And which variables would be appropriate for correlation? Stop the video and take the time to define each variable type, and then also come up with the combinations of variables that could be used for each of these tests. Given this jump output, what statistical technique is this? What would be the appropriate hypotheses? What is the statistical decision that you would make based on this output? And then take a moment to write a sentence to explain results for a general audience, not discussing failing to reject or rejecting, but including all important statistical information. What about for jump output that looks like this? What is this statistical technique? What are the appropriate hypotheses? Again, what is your statistical decision? And can you write a sentence for a general audience? Again, include important statistical information, but do not write your sentence of interpretation in statistical language. And finally, given this jump output, what is this statistical technique called? What would be the appropriate hypotheses here? What is your statistical decision? And again, write a sentence to explain the result for a general audience. Do not focus on the statistical interpretation, but focus on whether or not there is a significant relationship and what is that relationship between these variables. These 12 slides have covered the majority of the module objectives thus far. Take a moment to compare your answers to the answers provided in the example answer sheet, keeping in mind that the example answer sheet, particularly your sentences of interpretation, are in my voice, not in yours. It's important to make sure that you've conveyed similar information and correct statistical output, but that you may say things in a different manner than I say them. What's particularly important for your midterm exam is to not cut and paste my sentences from the example output into your midterm responses. Please use your own voice. Moving forward in your research life, you will not have my voice to use. You will need to find your own way to describe results of statistical analyses, and this is a great place to start that practice.